PEPCAST, Episode 1, an introduction to pooled retirement plan solutions, multiple employer plans, MEPs, and pooled employer plans, PEPs. Hi, everyone. Welcome to PEPCAST. This is a new audio series that Ascensus is launching to get you plugged into everything you need to know about pooled retirement plan solutions. I'm Aimee Furness, Director of Marketing Strategy at Ascensus, and I am pleased to introduce you to my co-host for this series, Dale Essenmacher. Dale is a Vice President and Pooled Plan Specialist with Ascensus, and he's been focusing on these solutions for more than a decade. I can't believe that, Dale. So he has a ton of knowledge and expertise to share, and I am so excited to be here with you, Dale.
Great to be with you, Aimee. I'm really looking forward to our conversation around MEPs and PEPs.
So in this first episode, we really want to set the stage by talking about multiple employer plans, known as MEPs, and pooled employer plans, known as PEPs. So for those not familiar with MEPs and PEPs, Dale, maybe you can kick us off with a quick history lesson. I know that you like history. So can you tell us, how did this all get started?
Absolutely. So it's kind of interesting, the story of multiple employer plans. It goes way back to the 1940s. Most people don't know that because of the modern day MEPs, which started in the late 1980s. But going back to the Taft-Hartley Act, multiple employer plans were sort of circled around defined benefit plans. But how most people know multiple employer plans is late 1980s with defined contribution or 401k plans. They became really popular in the 1990s and into the 2000s. And then, of course, with the passing of the Secure Act in December of 2019, we have this whole new phenomenon called pooled employer plans, or PEPs. So there's a long history there for MEPs, shorter history for PEPs, but both try to accomplish the same things.
That's really interesting, Dale. And I know you have so much background and knowledge on this. So can you tell me now, why are more groups starting to look at PEPs if we already had MEPs and other similar models in place, like groups of plans and exchanges? What are the advantages of PEPs?
So a couple of questions there to unpack. So I'll take the last question first in terms of the advantages of the PEPs. So there's two real main advantages of PEPs versus a standalone 401k plan. The first advantage is it alleviates a lot of the fiduciary responsibility off of a company or a business owner, i.e. a plan sponsor. Because in a PEP, there is an acronym known as PPP, a pooled plan provider, that takes over the named fiduciary role. So it lifts that off of the plan sponsor or business owner over to a company that's a benefit service provider who becomes the PPP. The second real main advantage of a PEP versus a standalone plan is the significant reduction of an administrative burden in handling a 401k plan. There's a lot of companies, especially on the smaller end, but even in the mid-market, so to speak, HR departments become less and less a number of employees. The resources just aren't what they can be. So having the ability to lift the administrative burden of running a 401k plan is a significant advantage for companies. So why PEPs versus MEPs? That's a great question. In the multiple employer plan space, there is what's known as a lead employer. The lead employer actually serves as the named fiduciary in a MEP. So an association, a chamber of commerce, those types of entities who formed MEPs in the past have all that liability and responsibility as a lead employer. In the PEP, as I said earlier, it gets shifted over to the PPP. I can't tell you the amount of conversations I've had with lead employers of multiple employer plans where they come to us and say, listen, if I can alleviate myself of all this responsibility and all these functions that I have to do in a MEP, sure, I'll go over to a PEP because it's very similar in the way it operates and very flexible in the way it operates for the participants and the adopting employers in these types of an arrangement.
Thanks for breaking that down, Dale. It's really interesting. And given all of the advantages that you just talked about, is a PEP going to be a good fit for all employers?
That's kind of an interesting question, a funny question, because like everything in our retirement plan industry, there simply is no solution that's a great fit for everybody. There's no one size fits all. It just doesn't exist in our industry. A PEP is a very good fit for many employers. I would argue 80 plus, maybe 90% of the employers out there should strongly consider a PEP. But there's still going to be a small percentage of the companies that it just doesn't fit for many different reasons. But like anything, any employer or business owner should go through a due diligence search, possibly and probably with a financial advisor or a consultant to assist them with this search, and make sure that they're checking all the boxes, making sure they're doing a due diligence. So when it is come time to make a decision of, do I join a PEP or a MEP, or do I have a standalone plan, they feel confident in that decision. And if anybody ever questions them in that decision-making process down the road, they have the proper documentation that they've done the research and the due diligence to make the proper choice for their employees.
Great. And, Dale, we hear about this a lot in terms of the amount of interest that's out there and discussion around PEPs. But based on how much employer interest there is around PEPs right now, why aren't more plan providers out there standing up their own PEP solutions?
Yeah, so there's probably about 15 to 20 providers today that offer a PEP solution. Now, there's hundreds of record keepers and administrators out there. So yeah, it's still a very small percentage that offer this type of solution. And there's a couple of reasons why. Number one is technology. To be able to build out a record keeping system that can report properly a pooled employer plan or a multiple employer plan, even for that matter, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of resources. Not everybody had the systems in place once PEPs came on. Now, if you were a provider that were knee deep in the MEP space, it was an easy transition into the PEP space. But that's why a lot of them, it's a resource. It's a lot of money to build out technology and systems to be able to report properly in the PEP space. The other part I would mention is that there's a lot of moving parts to PEPs. There's a pool plan provider, as I mentioned earlier. You have record keepers, administrators, 316s. There's 4 or 5 different functions within PEPs. It takes a lot of effort to build this out. Not everybody has the resources or the desire to do that. Again, we're still 2.5 years, 3 years into the PEP space. So there'll be more and more providers, I think, that do enter the space. But today it is a small subset of the total number of providers that exist in our industry.
Great information, Dale, and this has been a great discussion. I think we'll end it there for today, and we'll have a lot to cover in future episodes when we get together to chat. So next time, what I'd like to do is we'll start to tackle one of the myths that our audience may have heard, that PEPs have restrictive plan designs. Dun, dun, dun. I will leave that as a teaser for now, but to close, where can people go if they have questions right away, or who can they talk to for more information about MEPs and PEPs?
I would just really encourage everybody to search the Ascensus website for more information about MEPs and PEPs. Of course, I'm available and willing to engage in any conversation, as is our sales team at Ascensus. But again, the website will have a lot of information on MEPs and PEPs, and we look forward to talking to anybody in the future about your business and how you can enter into the MEP and PEP space.
Thank you so much, Dale. And also thanks to everyone who tuned into our first PEPCAST. Talk to you next time.